Hello and welcome to the Band of One podcast. I am Riley Wilson, and this podcast is for absolutely anybody that wants to start, grow, or maintain an existing solo or small group performing career. I have over 50 years of live performance experience and will include not only what I've learned during that time, but also other hardworking pros in their neck of the woods to give you an overview to help you make more money, have more fun, book more shows, and enjoy the process. If you have ideas for upcoming episodes, let us know. Let's get busy.
Guitar Made Simpler, an intelligent approach, is the first all-new guitar method in years. Riley Wilson, veteran guitar teacher, writer, and performer, has taught this same material successfully to thousands of students since 1987. This logical approach will help anyone begin mastering the world's most popular instrument. A combination of formal notation with guitar tablature and included MP3 disc guarantee your success. Online video by the author demonstrating performing examples slowly and correctly. Start making real progress on the guitar. Order your copy today at guitarmadesimpler.com.
Once again, welcome my buddy Chad Vermillion. Chad, once again, welcome.
Thanks, Riley. It's good to be here, brother.
All right, so we were talking about shows where you feel like you aren't really going over well. And one of the big surprises that always happens to me is I'll come up to people and they'll say, "Oh, we absolutely love what you're doing." And I learned not to get surprised about that, because if I feel like I'm doing my very best, one of the great things about being hired on a platform like a Gig Salad or the Bash or Gig Heaven, which is a new one I've been using, Thumbtack, any one of these, they've already seen your videos or audio samples. So the chances are they liked you enough to hire you based on those sorts of things. And so I've learned to not give in to that mental pressure, right? It's like getting that last rep on the bench press or doing that last squat, right? The mind says no, but if we force our bodies, we find out we actually can do it. And I think there's a lot of parallels with that. I want to divert before we get to that, because I know that's something we can talk about together. At what point did you decide when you started playing gigs that you're going to play more than just classical guitar pieces, because you play a wide variety of material? When did that happen?
I think that probably happened around the time that I discovered Phil Keaggy. I guess you know Phil Keaggy. Phil Keaggy was actually an idol of mine growing up. That first teacher introduced me to, and I remember hearing his Beyond Nature album and just being in awe of his alternate tunings, his tapping, and what he can do. But from there, I learned a lot of his music, but it wasn't until I heard him do live looping that I realized, first of all, the man's a genius, but number two, oh, wow, I can play music that I grew up with, on this looper with my classical guitar. And now I grew up in the 90s, so I like alternative rock and grunge rock, but I also love the 70s. I love, Queen and Aerosmith
Sure.
and AC/DC. And no, go ahead. You say something? You have something?
No, I want to just jump in about one thing, because you and I know exactly who Phil is. Guitar Player Magazine profiled him over 50 years ago. But for those people that don't, Phil is a contemporary Christian guitarist, recording artist that had an amazing ability to pull in everything you could hear from any guitar player anywhere in the world, put his unique spin on it, and do it in a way that you end up going, "How do you think of that?"
Yeah.
He's been a world-class player. As long as I've been playing gigs, Phil has been doing what he's doing, and he's a monster. So again, if we're giving you names, Pepe Romero or Phil Keaggy or Sabicas, there's another one for you, talking about flamenco, right? If these are unfamiliar, please do a search for these folks. And one of the great things, of course, you can find videos of them on YouTube. And I just wanted to throw that in, because Phil Keaggy deserves a lot more accolades than he's gotten, and just in my opinion.
He does. As a matter of fact, Chet Atkins once called him one of the greatest guitar players in the world. And he's a very humble man. And
Yeah,
I'm
very
sorry,
much.
guys, I don't mean to talk at you if you don't understand the people I'm talking about. But like Riley said, Phil Keaggy is a master at the guitar. But he inspired, as a matter of fact, if you want to hear him, go search for Phil Keaggy Shades of Green and watch the genius that is that man unfold. Anyway, but he showed me it live looping, and I realized, oh, I can play a Beatles song with a drum beat. I can, loop a bass line. I can play a concerto with a backing track, this looper. Oh my goodness, I can play Nirvana, through using this looper, on my live link. I can play Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I love now, just because I grew up playing and loving classical music doesn't mean that's the music I listened to as a teenager. I mean, I did, but I was listening to Nirvana and Pearl Jam and
Sure.
Queen and Aerosmith and AC/DC and all that other stuff. And I love rock and roll. And so when I finally started learning how to play like classic rock and roll songs on a classical guitar, because to this day I only perform on a nylon string guitar most of the time. I mean, I have a Telecaster, Stratocaster, and I've got a Martin and Taylor and all that stuff, but I rarely play an acoustic guitar. I very rarely play an electric guitar. And Riley will attest to this because playing a classical guitar, once you have accustomed your fingers to playing a classical guitar, and you've gotten very good at not buzzing notes on a classical guitar, it's very difficult to play a different kind of guitar. It is very difficult. And vice versa. An electric guitar player has a very difficult time playing a classical guitar. Yeah, most of the time, if you haven't played it before,
Yeah.
because it takes skill to play it well. Anyway, but I learned that by using, even electronic, but then I started realizing, I could, because I never really just sang and played a guitar. I would always play classical music. I would always play flamenco guitar, or I would always, maybe loop something that I could sing to, but I would very rarely just stand there and play like a country song strumming away. And I realized I could do that and people enjoyed that. Example, got a great classical playlist, some really impressive songs, and you would be like, wow, this is a great music. To the average user, they're like, that was nice. Yeah, that was great. But you sit there and you play the intro to Thunderstruck on the thing, every head turns, and they're like, "Yeah, give me more of that." So I realized it's not about me at live gigs; it's about what they want to hear, and they don't necessarily want to hear the second movement to the Adagio Concerto around the West. They might want to hear a, Blues Traveler. They might want to hear, Roy Orbison, something, and that moves people. And so when I realized it didn't take a lot of effort to move people, because I'm trying to move them through my proficiency and virtuosity, they want to be moved through nostalgia. They want to be moved through something that makes them feel. So that's what I would tell pretty much anyone. If you think that you're going to move them based on your technique and your skill, you're not gonna. You can impress them, but you're not going to move them. And so make sure that you have a little something that, and I call this my get back on track thing. If I'm playing Malagueña and it's sounding really, really great. Not a thing happened. Okay, my very next song, I'm going to start playing Sweet Child of Mine, just the intro of it. And I'm going to watch every head. And if they start turning, I know the direction I got to go.
That's an incredible point. In fact, it's hilarious because when you said the phrase, that's nice. Our mothers had a big influence on us. My mother was not very musical at all. My dad actually was a fine country singer and a good rhythm guitar player. He had played on the Louisiana Hayride a few times before mother and dad got married in the early 50s in Shreveport. No matter what we did, musical, my mom's phrase would always be, "That's nice."
Nice.
And so that's all the response I would ever get out of her. And so I've tried to keep that in mind over the years when I'm performing for other people. Is this something that they're going to enjoy? I get a lot of times people will ask me about obscure songs on gigs, and I tell them I really don't do that kind of material. I said I'm trying to help people, a large group of people, recognize something and like something that I'm doing, and the chances are good if I've got enough kinds of material, they're going to like all of that. And certainly there's
Yeah.
some songs, for example, if it's a strict country gig, I may not play Sweet Child of Mine, or I might not play Sweet Caroline. But
Yeah.
if it's a country gig and they like authentic country music, I'm going to do George Jones. I'm going to do Buck Owens. I'm going to do
Yeah.
all of those sorts of things because again, we're reading the audience. When you started,
Huh.
doing these solo gigs and you begin singing and looping, you pretty much got feedback right away that, hey, this works, right?
Yeah. Wait. Say that again. So, like when I
Okay, when
was
you started doing the looping and you're, doing a
right.
variety of material and you're
Oh,
doing it your way, you could tell right away, oh, this is working. People are liking this.
yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, especially if I started playing popular music, whether it's pop music, country music, classic rock, that's when I realized that that's what people want to hear. And I am the worst thing I did was try to push my own musical agenda on an audience. Yes, I have control of a set list. It's my set list.
Yeah,
But if I want to get someone to hire me again, or to say that guy was awesome, I want to get him. If I want to get a repeat business or a referral, I got to play what they want to hear, and I've got to be able to figure that out on my own. I can't just ask them, "What do y'all want to hear?" They don't know. They don't know what they want. Okay, I'm going to tell. And 90% of the time, my stuff, they say, "Oh, we want you to play this and X and Y and Z." And I get there and I'm like, yeah, that's not what we're going to do. And now, respectfully, I don't do this to affront them, but I will slip something in because I realize where it's going. And afterwards, they always say, that was awesome. Thank you for doing that.
absolutely. In fact, this is not just Steve Jobs. This is Chad Vermillion. They don't know what they want until you perform it and give it to them, right? There's a lot of truth in that, and I think that's wonderful. Let me go back to something earlier. One of the great things about Chad is that he has had a tremendous amount of success, and those of you that are already on Gig Masters, the Bash, know that once you have a membership, they have what they call Search Results Analyzer. And many times I was chasing that guy there, Chad, because he was the number one guy in this market for doing that. He was booking more gigs. And I would
Was
know
I
to
really?
myself, man, I got to fine tune what I'm doing because Chad's number one and I'm not like number two or three or number four. So, and I've chased different people through the Metroplex on that for a long time. So this is a little kind of a hidden secret that you and I can share with the listeners here and the viewers because if you really want to be good at what you do, you find out who's the best person in the market for this or that. And it's
Mhm.
changed,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
There
yeah.
was a guy named Matthew Cotillo when I first started on the Bash that was number one in the nation, right? And he was good. My buddy David Payton, who we've already profiled on this podcast, was the number one guy in Atlanta for years. Um, and everybody that is good, what you do is you take from those folks, you learn from those folks, and say, how can I do this in my own way? What's interesting, I have my own way of approaching stuff, and I learned early on I'm not going to compete with a Chad Vermillion because I haven't studied classical guitar for 20 something years. There is a completely different touch for classical. It's very challenging. Again, ask Andy Summers about that, right? Or any other guitar player. I think going back to 1971, 72, when I would watch Steve Howe in concerts playing something like Clap on a steel string Martin guitar, and they would literally exit the
Yeah.
stage, everybody, yes, but him. And I saw him do that, and I was stunned, and I realized I have to take up acoustic guitar and get better at that. So anybody, if you're an electric only player, get an acoustic guitar and start playing. If you're a classical only player, get an electric guitar and have fun with it. I think
Yeah.
being diverse
Yeah.
is a really strong thing. And while we're talking about that, you mentioned playing a classical guitar on your shows. What's your setup look like at this time?
It's funny you say that. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on was gear. Because this is a mistake I've made few times in my professional career is relying on gear way too much. And this, if it comes into effects more than anything, pedal boards, effect boards, things like that, or an amp setup that you absolutely have to have to perform. Because, like I said, my son is now a guitar player, but the downside of that is he steals my stuff and uses my stuff and breaks my stuff. He's
Mhm.
already broken two of my pedal boards that I use for my chorus and my compression and all that stuff. And I'm like, and it happened the day of the gig. I'm going out and I'm realizing I've got some songs on the set list that requires delay. I've got some that requires, overdub and the chorus comp and everything like that. I've got to be able to play my stuff without the gadgetry. So if you rely on equipment too much, it's going to bite you. So make sure whatever you do, you have a way of performing that you have a backup that you can don't rely on something. Except the guitar, you got to have that. But and always remember to bring batteries. I can't tell you how many times I don't have a 9-volt battery ready for my stupid preamp. So anyway, my rack, if it was working all right now, I use a Boss RC50 looper. I've been using that now for. It's time to upgrade that one. It's old. I use a pod. 360X, I want to say. No, it's a 390X. It's a newer one. I got it at Guitar Center. And it's pretty much it's just an effects control board. It's got all your effects you need and about 8 different stations, banks that you can put it in. I use a what is that amp? I bought this amp from a guy who was going out of business. He was a DJ. And he has is this massive like subwoofer thing with a tower on it. It
Yeah.
sounds really good. I can't think. It's not a Bose. It's not a. It might be a Fishman. It might be a Fishman. I really do want to invest in a really new, good kind of mid 150 to 200 people setup, stack of something. And then I have just a mic with a, thing. It's going to be a, SM50 or just a CAD 95 or something like that mic. I've got a control board that has, four or five channels coming into it. And that's pretty much it. I don't use a computer. I don't use anything MIDI or anything digital or anything like that. Everything I do is pretty much live or it's back. I have it through backing tracks that I have on the phone.
Cool. I think one of
Yeah.
the things that you point out about redundancy, my buddy Walt Pitts, who we profiled recently, just has a new video that I saw this morning about redundancies and about having extras of this and extras of that, because inevitably you forget things. I forgot two things for two gigs last weekend, one different one Friday night and a different one on Saturday, and I was frustrated, but I managed to make it through the gig, and I think that's really important is if you have a equipment malfunction or something goes sideways, do your best to do the gig and don't let the audience know about that, right?
That's right. They don't need to. They
No,
don't. They don't even know if you mess up. They just know if it just sounds bad. So make your mess up sound good.
absolutely, absolutely. So one of the other things that I want to talk about is I want to talk about career diversity because my friend, you have that in spades.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's
I
talk
am
about that for a moment.
okay.
You've
Well,
got a bodybuilding career, you've got a personal training career, you've done you've done all different kinds of stuff. Talk about that a little bit of kind of how that helps you with music and how music helps you with the other things that you do.
I have many different. I've had many different careers, many different jobs. I have been a software engineer. I've been very good in marketing, very big in marketing. I'm very big in sales, and I'm a very people oriented person. Um, However, through all my careers in life. I'm 46 right now. Music has been there the entire time. That's been the one constant career in my life, and everything else comes and goes. Music is always there and it's always going to be there. My son asked me that last night, like, Dad, when you're 80, 90, you're still going to be going out and playing gigs. And I said, man, if my body's still working, I'm going to go do it. It brings me joy. I love going and experiencing and sharing that with people and experiencing that moment with people in life. That doesn't come back again, So, but for me, like I said, I am a personal trainer. I am a professional bodybuilder. I just had two people just turn pro bodybuilder on Saturday that I coached. So I'm very happy about that. I'm an actor. That's my main. I'm a voiceover actor as well. I do voiceover acting. I do also face to camera acting. A lot of. You'll see me in the Paramount series Special Ops Lioness. I'm gonna be in season 2 of that and a few other shows. So I do a lot of acting. And primarily for me, I'm people say I'm very ADHD when it comes to what I do. I don't like doing just one thing. It's if it's not fun, I'm not going to do it very long. So but I have 4 children I have to support, so I can't just play all the time. I have to make a good income. So,
Well,
but that's what I do.
one of the interesting things about this is by doing different things, you learn different things. For example, let's talk about voiceover for a second, because that's something you and I have both done for years and years. How does voiceover help you, for example, when you're playing a music gig, or does it help?
Well, it helps. It helps primarily knowing how to have a presence because just doing voiceover acting, it's not easy doing voiceover acting,
No,
as you
people
know.
think
It
it is,
takes
it's not.
Guys, and this guy is a master at what he does. I've heard your work. He's a master. It takes energy. It takes facial expression. It takes your whole body getting into something that you're trying to do and convey a message that you can't see, that you're just using your voice to do. So for me, it helps me with my confidence and my presence, especially being up there as a vocalist. I'm not just up there as a performer, but I'm up there singing. And it helps me to just have that full presence in front of a microphone, especially if you can't hear what's going on around you. You have to trust to know that your presence is enough to fill up what you're doing. And I got that primarily from sitting behind a voiceover microphone.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the other good things that voiceover has helped me to do is I've learned how to work a microphone. And
Yeah.
we don't talk about that too much. I remember going to see a show. We had an off night one time when I was playing with a band in South Carolina in 1974. So the vocalist go back and I'll do this. I was going back and forth like this. I thought, why is he doing that? The answer is this guy knew how to work a microphone.
Yeah.
There's a proximity effect on a lot of microphones, especially a dynamic mic. If you get right up in front of it, it's very bassy. And if you sing bass register stuff, which I certainly do, and I suspect from your vocal speaking
Yep.
range you would as well, it's nice to have that. It's kind of like a fifth gear on a car if you need to pass someone or you want to drive really fast. But I think working a microphone, I think, is important. Um, and I think also being an actor, you have things that you've learned by being an actor that probably have helped you in your live shows as a musician, correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, especially when it comes to being present there, conveying a message through what I'm singing or conveying energy through what I'm singing. Because no matter what, and we've all seen this, we've seen a live performer up on stage or up in front of a restaurant, and they have no energy in their facial expressions or in their movement. They're singing really well, but you can't feel anything from what they do. Acting, especially seeing myself on camera over and over and over again, got me to see what I look like to people when I'm out there doing this. I
Sure.
think I look one way. I think look great and sound great. It doesn't look that way. So you've got to put overemphasis into overacting, so to speak, to make sure that what you're acting is coming across, especially in emotional songs like emotional ballads or something that's very high up tune. You want to convey energy. It's got to come from here.
Yeah.
So I've learned that from acting.
One of the great things, of course, about our generation now is that we have a lot of tools that we didn't have, right? You mentioned
Yeah.
earlier you got started performing before the internet really existed. There are online booking agencies, no matter where you live, that you can use and take advantage of that will help you to get work if you're good. Um, and I've talked about this before. I think one of the reasons that Kiss made such an impact
Mhm.
is, and by the way, there is a video of those folks that have not seen this. It was done in January of 1976. It's basically the Kiss 1975, the Alive album tour. And you can see them do the licks and all that stuff. The thing that was amazing and why those guys had such an impact is that Bill Aucoin, their first manager, had two video cameras. And these were not just major, sorry, little, these were actually three-quarter, I think they were three-quarter inch beta cam like 70s era, what they would record television news on. And so they did their entire show and rehearsed that show for a year or so,
Yep.
watching things on camera. How do we move? How do we do this? Right? All those kinds of things. So they knew what they looked like. And you compare them to anybody else that was out in 1974 or 1975. Take a Climax
There's no
Blues Band, for
contest.
example, right?
There's no contest. No
There was
contest.
absolutely no contest. And so they had a big impact because they knew what they looked like really 20 or 30 years before anybody else did. We didn't have music videos in the 60s or 70s, they didn't exist. Um, in fact, Mike Nesmith, who's born here in Dallas, right? His offhand remark to a producer one time in New York is what started MTV. And you were fortunate to be able to grow up with that. We didn't have MTV when I grew up, so it was something that happened when I was already an adult and married. It was the first time I saw MTV. And so there are a lot of tools that we talk about cell phones, we talk about tablets, we talk about loopers. There's all kinds of great things. And gear, most gear right now is priced much lower than it would have been in the 70s, definitely the 60s. It's a
Yeah,
lot lighter, right? We don't have to
much more
carry stuff
available.
and torture our backs. So there's a
Ah,
lot of cool things about that. Yeah, go ahead.
okay. That's a question I had for you and maybe for the listeners as well. I would love to make my entire setup wireless. I would love to have just come up, set an amp down, set a pedal board down, set a microphone up, go. Is that possible yet?
Yeah, it is. And in fact, I want you to reach out to my buddy. And in fact, anybody watching this, reach out to my buddy Walt Pitts. Tell him you saw the podcast at primemusicvideo.com. Get in touch with Walt Pitts. His entire setup is wireless. In fact, he put a video on LinkedIn this morning talking about that exact thing. So, yes, it's possible to do. One of the great things about doing shows right now is you don't have to carry a lot of equipment. My low back has been destroyed because the first band I worked with had not one but two Hammond B3 organs. We had
Oh,
a 6 ton,
go.
we had a 6 ton tractor, a 6 ton truck with a forklift on the back of it. I would wake up sometimes at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning after getting home at 2 or 3 a.m. with my calves screaming because I had tried to use the calves to help me to lift, to put this 400 something pound Hammond organ up on the forklift and then forklift it up and then put it in the truck. Um,
Yeah.
but again, that's what it was back then. Everything was vacuum tubes. A Leslie loudspeaker was 130 pounds, right? You
Yeah.
would have bass cabinets that could weigh 150 pounds for a bass cabinet. Lift an Ampeg SVT head or an 810 cabinet one time. That's what Gene Simmons was playing through on those 1970s performances. Um,
Yep.
Marvelous if you have a road crew or if you have a competitive bodybuilder like Chad to lift your stuff. For the rest of us, it's
Well,
tough to
you can
do.
even have one, somebody like me, and I still don't want to lift it. I mean, it's a weighs a ton. I mean,
Yeah,
it takes me 3 trips. I know it, 3 trips to the car to get everything out that I need to get in. It takes me 15, 20 minutes to set it all up,
yeah,
to get it
yeah,
plugged in, to get it leveled,
yeah.
to get it tested. And I'm like, there has to be a better way. So I will reach out to Walt because I am
Yeah.
very eager to
Also,
figure
you and
that
I will
out.
talk about this offline because I can give you a couple of suggestions about some gear. One of the things that I want to talk about very briefly is your web page. Do you have a web page or website where people can see either the music, the CDs, about the bodybuilding, the personal training, any of those sorts of things? And what so
Well,
would it
actually,
be?
right now, it's kind of in transition. I have one, but I'm redoing it currently. The best way for people to find me is honestly through Instagram.
Okay.
Most everything I do, the Chad Vermillion is my handle on Instagram. That's where I do most all my stuff. For all my music stuff, the Bash actually has most of my clips on it. I really need to. I have, and this is a good problem to have. I have a lot of clients now, a lot of I have a lot of repeat business. I have people that reach out to me all the time. I'm not marketing as much as I used to. I just haven't had the need to do it. To answer your question, yes and no. I have something, but it's in works.
Okay. Okay. All right. So check back with us at some point in the future. We could discuss this. One of the
Yeah,
great things that I think that we've been able to establish on this particular podcast, number one, if you really enjoy performing music and you want to make a go of it, you could do it regardless of your background.
yeah.
If you're at all attuned to what an audience is giving you, then you can make the process go even better and you can have more success. Um, any any other suggestions or thoughts that you would have for somebody that's maybe somebody that's been in a band? In fact, let me ask that question. Did you ever work in a band environment or has it pretty much always been solo stuff?
Pretty much always been. So I have been in a couple bands. So I'm very, short here and there, kind of garage band. Nothing
Yeah.
ever to the performing level. So no, I
Okay.
pretty much been on my own. But if I was going to tell someone coming from a band
Yes,
and
please.
coming to perform as a solo artist, it's wonderful. And the fact that you're in control, you're in control of the set list, of the tempo, of the changes. But with that, you have to learn how to play more than just you. I mean, if you want to be really effective, if you come from a band, then you need to know, how does a bass part go? How does a rhythm part go? How can I incorporate all that into my solo act? Because strumming and playing, if you can strum and play and do great playing and singing great, good for you. I'm not one of those people. It's very difficult for me to play intricate stuff and sing at the same time.
Oh,
Hence, I do a lot of
yeah, I
looping.
agree.
So, yeah, he gets it. So
It's
I
a
see
very
people
tough
like,
thing.
oh, I see people like Dave Mustaine who can sit there and just like shredding, like talking to you, like, no, 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 I don't know how they do that. But learn to do more than just strum and play. If you can incorporate looping, do it. It just adds to your sound. And always listen to your audience for the songs they want to hear. And if you don't know it, then you keep that for next time. Always do have a list that says, oh, can you play something by Jason Aldean? No, but I will next time. Thanks for that. So always be listening to them because that's going to make you an in-demand artist. People aren't going to remember what you played, but they are going to remember how you made them feel, and that's going to determine if you come back.
Let me ask one other thing. I know you have a career as a bodybuilder and also a personal
Mhm.
trainer. How has that helped you, or has that been a help in your music career?
Well, it's been a help and it's been a hindrance. It's been a help, and from the fact that there is nothing in my life that's been needed more discipline than bodybuilding. It's a very disciplined, intense sport. It's a very simple sport, but it's not a very easy sport. But what it takes to be a bodybuilder is what it takes to be a great guitar player. It takes those hours and hours of just work. It takes the small practicing that you don't get credit for, but it makes you a better player. And but the thing that it didn't help for me, in the fact that lifting in the gym has increased the size of my hands, and as that has affected my sound to an extent. And so I've had to kind of cut back some songs that I used to be really fast and good at. I've had to scale that back a little bit. Now I could get it back if I practiced at it, but right now, my coaching and bodybuilding is a little more important to me than my music career, so to speak. So it can. You just have to make sure you take care of your instrument, which to me is my hands and my voice.
Absolutely. Well, one of the interesting things about that is that there's discipline that is required. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable discipline, but you need to make an effort to practice the instrument or practice playing and singing, right? You need to go in the gym. You have to physically lift the weights, right?
Uh,
The bar will not lift itself, unfortunately.
Well,
And
not yet.
also, it's like the old joke, abs aren't made in the gym, they're made in the kitchen, right? And
Kitchen.
so
Yep.
because I've been involved with that for years and years. I remember Dennis Budimir, who was an outstanding session musician in Los Angeles. In fact, Tommy Tedesco, who was the dean of all those guys, one time said Dennis was his
Yeah.
favorite guitar player. And Dennis did all the difficult movie stuff, all the different film stuff, television stuff. He and Tedesco were the two people that did that. And he was a big fan of weightlifting. And he used that to help deal with the stresses of being in the studio because in Los Angeles, the studio sessions would run from 8 to 11, 2 to 5, and then 8 to 11 p.m. at night. There were a lot of guys who would do 3 sessions a day, 5 days a week. And the chance for burnout for that was really good. Tim May, by the way, who was also an incredible session player, who was the guy who was on call for Dukes of Hazzard when I was at GIT in 1973. We asked him about that. We said, "How do you unwind from that?" Because he had a pager. And if they called him, he had to be able to leave wherever he was and go to that studio and do it.
Oh,
So he was tied up Monday through Friday, like a voiceover guy that does the network promo stuff. Tonight at
yeah.
7 on NBC5, right? Those guys that are on call all the time. And he said, I like to go out with my wife and play tennis. He said, we go for walks in the neighborhood. He said, the weekend is when I have a chance to really relax and unwind. There was a guy, what was the guy's name? I worked with a company called Radio Vision in the late 90s here, and I got to do some of those car commercials. And boy, I'll tell you
Mhm.
something. I've done some. It's very grueling work because it is incredibly
Yeah.
physical to do. There's a guy
Yeah.
named Sid Wortman, makes it boy, right? He was the
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
that did all of that stuff. And his thing was he would get out on a boat and spend the weekend on the boat because Monday through Friday he's in the studios recording.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
and
you can
again,
get too busy. So I
yeah,
think
you
it's
can.
important to have a something you can go to that allows you the opportunity to blow off some steam and not think about it
Yeah.
half the time.
Well, and it's just like you said, or like I said, there's one reason I'm not a professional, full-time professional doing this. If I did what that guy did, I would learn to hate the guitar. If I had to be in a session 3 hours at a time, 3 sessions a day, I mean that would probably make me not want to do it. And that's maybe another reason why I do so many things because I love what I do. I love playing the guitar. I love bodybuilding. I love bodybuilding. I love coaching. I love helping people transform their life. If I did all of those full time every day, 80 hours a week, then I'd probably not like it as much.
Well, balance in life is really important, and I think it's important to enjoy what you do and do it to the best of your abilities. And then when you have an opportunity to take a break and go do something else. I've enjoyed teaching guitar for 40 plus years because I struggled so
Yeah.
much to learn it, and that's been a great opportunity
Yeah.
for me. I do enjoy voiceovers. I do enjoy playing gigs, and I have a chance to do a little bit of all of those. I enjoy doing this podcast. The podcast was something that came about when I was laid up after I had to have my hip replaced. And I thought, man, I'm 68 years old. Is this it? Am I done? And so to be able to talk to folks like yourself, this is incredible. We
Yeah.
provided tremendous information for folks, not just people that want to be a solo artist, but people that just want to, for example, be in a band and have success. And I think that what we're talking about here, it really simply means doing your very best. And
Mhm.
doing your best, what's best for you is maybe not best for Chad or for Riley, but do your very
Yeah.
best and then kind of watch the process, watch what happens. I'm also glad you mentioned about your background as in sales and marketing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's important. If you want to book work,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to do at least a little bit of that. The more you do, the better you're going to do, right?
Oh, regard. Oh, you know what? Then I'll make a comment about that. Now, having media, your media is crucial in this business. Having video clips and audio clips that people can see you and they can listen to you. They can see if you're who they want to hire. However, I want to say more crucial than that is when you get their name and their phone number through the, gig event, whatever, you to be able to call them and to speak pleasantly to them that you are the person they want to talk to, that you listen to what they're looking for, that you hear their needs, what kind of music they're wanting to hear. And then you're reading between the lines of what kind of music they really want to hear. And then you're making that back to them. So you have to be able to sell yourself. You could be the best musician. You could be Eddie Van Halen of the guitar and not book a single gig because you don't know how to talk to a customer or don't know how to sell yourself as a package. So that I would tell everybody work on before everything else. If you want to make money at this, learn your instrument, but learn how to talk and how to sell.
And that's sadly something that a lot of folks under the age of 40 struggle with because they can do really well texting, but they have a harder time communicating or speaking to people, learning to look someone in the eye, smile, and be
Yeah.
pleasant, and to be able to talk with them. I think reading something, not necessarily on the internet, reading a book or a magazine or a newspaper, any of those things will help you to grow
Yeah.
and stretch because what happens is that you become eventually a better and a more rounded and a better version of yourself as you do this. And I think that's probably one of the great things about working as a solo artist is that you have to be chief cook and bottle washer,
Yes, you
and you're
do.
responsible for all of those things.
Yep.
Chad, this has been absolutely magic. I knew that it probably would be because of your background and just because of the things we have had a chance to chat about today. But man, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to what David Fortune told us long ago. Get out a pen and paper and take notes on this one. This has been
That's right.
chock full of all kinds of amazing things. Anything that I didn't cover that you wanted to mention?
No, Riley, I want to say thank you very much for this because I've been wanting to get with you forever too. Like I never looked. I know you're like number one of everything on gigs. Like I actually looked at it for the first time in like years the other day. Like I never know where I am on the gig list or whatever. But one thing I love more than anything is collaborating with local musicians. Like collaborating with Riley. Do not be selfish. Do not think, well, I don't want to give him a gig because then I won't get a gig or whatever. It's like if you can't do a gig, give it to the other people in for goodwill. It'll come back to you. But
Absolutely.
I have no problem whatsoever recommending to Riley because I know the caliber of musician he is and the caliber of person that he is. And that's all what this local scene is all about, at least in Dallas.
Well, and here's the other thing too, and that is it really doesn't matter where you are. If you find somebody, again, if somebody wants a classical guitar player, I've told them many times, look, go call Chad Vermillion. This guy is the real deal. You want classical guitar, this is who you want. And it's that way with anyone, whoever it is that you're talking to. Don't be afraid to refer shows to other people because it will come back to you in abundance. It's the law of the harvest, the law of sowing and reaping. It's
Yeah,
biblical. It goes back centuries and it's very simple. When you do that, you'll find that things work out. So,
that's right.
again, thank you so very much for everything. Folks, you've been listening to and watching the Band of One podcast. I'm Riley Wilson with my special guest, Chad Vermillion. And we're grateful that you joined us for this one. If you have ideas for upcoming podcasts, or you know someone or would like yourself personally to be profiled, reach out to me through our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Band of One podcast. You can also get in touch with me through my webpage, which is guitarmadesimpler.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.